We now continue with more of The Mark Milton Show with The Smash on 590 The Fan and 590thefan.com.
All right, you're listening to The Mark Milton Show, normally with The Smash here in the Miller Furniture Studios, presented by STLTaxLawyer.com. Joining us now, I'm very excited about this guest. We've talked a little bit about sports gambling in the past. We've got Alex Eaton, who is a senior member of Catalyst government relations firm out of Columbia, right, Alex?
Yeah, I live in Columbia. Our office headquarters, or we have an office in Kansas City as well as Jefferson City, and then have members that live a couple team members that live in mid-Missouri, Kansas City, and then also St. Louis. So we're headquartered in Kansas City, but based throughout the state.
Absolutely. Well, we appreciate you being with us, Alex Eaton. He's I like to say government relations, but really you're a lobbyist. There's nothing wrong with that. I've talked about that before.
Correct.
I mean, everybody needs a lobbyist. Yeah. Everybody needs somebody advocating for what they believe in or what they think policies should be. So we appreciate you joining us. And I know you've been a very a staunch advocate for legalized sports gambling in the state of Missouri. So I thought it'd be great to have you on to kind of give listeners an update on where things stand. Because from my perspective, we've had many states who have legalized sports gambling. And, you know, frankly, I think it's inevitable that it will become a national thing. And so I'm interested to know sort of in Missouri where things stand. You know, you've got state, right next door in Illinois, you've got Casino Queen has a DraftKings sports book. If there's talk of, I don't know where it stands with Fairmont getting a sports book there, but it's obviously happening all around us, at least in the St. Louis area. So I'd like to start off, I guess, by, from your standpoint as somebody who's in the Capitol in Jeff City regularly, what is the current state of legalized sports gambling in Missouri?
Yeah, so Mark, first of all, appreciate you having me on. As you know, or some of your listeners may know, the legislature kicked off first part of January and have been in close to a month now, and the legislative session runs through May. There are currently 8 bills that have been filed in the House and Senate that contain sports betting legislation. Now, those different bills, there's differences there in tax rates and, if the lotto manages it or if it's through the gaming commission. So, but all in, there are 8 bills. There was a hearing on Tuesday of this week in the Senate Appropriations Committee on a bill that contains sports betting. So there is some early movement, and as you mentioned, Illinois has it, as well as Iowa, Arkansas, and Tennessee that all border Missouri. So there are 4 states around Missouri that already have implemented sports betting, and in all roughly 25 states that have either have an active sports betting market or that have legalized it and just trying to bring it on board and get it up and going, including Washington, D.C. So they're, all in, basically half the country of the states have some form of sports betting that they legalize sports betting.
Right, and most of those. And so I'm a big Dave Portnoy guy. Barstool. I got in early on Penn National when it dropped early in COVID, and it's been soaring ever since. They're obviously betting big on widespread legalized sports gambling. They've got their own app. I know that for some reason, I think they started in Pennsylvania, was like the first state they got up and running. This past week, I saw where they were doing a big kickoff in Michigan with a sports book up there. And so I guess from a sort of the key players standpoint, I mean, obviously all the existing casinos and Vegas, your traditional Vegas operators or whatever you want to call them are interested in this stuff. And so I guess what would it look like in Missouri? I mean, given your experience, like what are we just talking, hey, you're going to legalize being able to bet on apps? Are we talking full-blown sports books? What do you think the future holds?
So for the most part, most of the bills that have been filed will have mobile sports betting. All of them have mobile sports betting. Now, brick and mortar sports book, Missouri is kind of unique in that the Constitution only allows for casinos to receive the licenses. So Missouri has 13 brick and mortar casinos. Those casinos will receive the sports book, sports betting licenses. So, for example, in Illinois, there is going to be a physical sports book outside of Wrigley Field that the DraftKings received a license. So unfortunately in Missouri, that's not possible. But through mobile apps, which you mentioned, Barstool.
DraftKings, FanDuel. I mean, those are all betting apps that we can't use in Missouri. Well, actually, you can use those, but that's where I get confused on what's allowed and what's not currently.
Yeah, so in Missouri, so just for transparency, I represent DraftKings, FanDuel, and BetMGM, which are all mobile sports betting operators.
Yep.
You can create an account and look at lines and action on those apps. You cannot place a bet or to make a bet on your phone. That's just geo-fenced in Missouri. But as we're seeing, you mentioned St. Louis. You can download. The funny thing is, I was looking at St. Louis News yesterday just online and had an ad pop up that was promoting me to download a sports betting app and then just pop over to Illinois to place bets.
Yep.
And we saw that 4 or 5 years ago when we lobbied for legalization of daily fantasy sports, and Iowa was ahead of us on DFS, and they are on sports betting as well. People would just pop over to Iowa and place their wagers through DFS and go that route. So you are kind of seeing with Iowa, Arkansas, Illinois, it is very easy to just pop over the state border and make bets on your phone, or even go to casinos to spend money when Missouri's losing out on that revenue and kind of tourism traffic that could be driven to the 13 casinos and municipalities that are located in Missouri.
Yeah, and so who's the opposition? Like, who's opposed to this? And I guess I say that while also appreciating that, I don't think widespread gambling is a great thing for society. I mean, if you go to a Casino Queen or, Lumiere or some other place, I mean, it can be somewhat depressing to sort of see what takes place, even in Vegas, if you go to a casino. And so I guess I understand maybe the moral arguments against it. But from my standpoint, that ship has sort of sailed. I mean, we kind of already have widespread gambling as it is, both legally and illegally. And so what is the remaining counter argument to legalize sports gambling in Missouri?
So I think for the most part, the opposition has now kind of pivoted to kind of, I guess, just a moral opposition to any form of gaming. There's elected officials that just say, whether it's sports betting or poker or, blackjack, I'm just morally opposed to gambling in general. So, I'm going to oppose that. Now, when you get kind of down, dig into the different bills, there's, the what I would consider casinos prefer a specific model, prefer, a specific tax rate. Then you have groups that, Major League Baseball, PGA and NBA, which are Catalyst clients that, prefer a model, which I do think going back 2 or 3 years, there were that I guess disagreement is getting closer to a solution. I do think legislators are more interested in getting something done this year. So, the opposition inside Jefferson City is not from outside groups is not vocal, but
it's more the competing interest. Is it more there's so many interested parties who want it to happen and what it looks like? Correct.
Yes. There's daily fantasy sports operators. There are casinos. Obviously the professional teams in Missouri, Royals, Cardinals, Blues, those groups want to make sure that, the players are protected, the teams that put investments into, make investments into the team, the product, they want to make sure that there's not, another Black Sox scandal that
Sure.
would harm the integrity of the game or the reputation of the game. So there's just a lot of varying interests that at the end of the day, they support it or want to see something done. It's just how do you get there? And I think that's where the kind of the muddying of the waters, I guess, has formed.
Yeah, and it's interesting that you bring up
from 3 years ago. We've made great strides.
Yeah, and when you think about the Black Sox scandal and sort of the potential for point shaving and that sort of thing, I feel like that has been mitigated or reduced in the sense of our social media age, because I think it would be a lot harder to get away with blowing a free throw on purpose, or just with the way we communicate now. There'd be much more of a trail than back in the day when a couple of mobsters approach a guy and it's sort of harder to track down. So at least that's my opinion. I think it would be harder to do today, but I could be wrong. But it's obviously a concern when you talk about the number of dollars that are in play here.
Yeah, I think you're correct. I think everyone would agree that if sports betting is going to be legal, it should be carefully regulated to kind of protect the fans in the games, and whether those consumer protections include kind of advertising to avoid minors or targeting minors, make sure that any bets made inside a sports book, you do age verification. Real-time data sharing, if there's a bet made before a Cardinals game that looks suspicious, can those operators all kind of work together to figure out if this is a legitimate bet, or if there's some kind of inside baseball information being shared that the general public's not aware of. So just stuff like that I think is in the bills that definitely want to see that if this becomes legalized, that there are protections in place for the players, fans, and teams that have spent billions of dollars building their product and building their team.
Yeah, I almost envision an SEC-like regulator, like with the stock market. I mean, the stock market has become a casino. I mean, it's just, what we've seen the last week go on with the GameStop and, some others. It's just remarkable to me, and I think that with the technology we have today, it would be fairly easy, and I use that word sort of loosely, but to kind of track things and be able to monitor any irregularities when it comes to sports betting, which is already done. I mean, in Vegas, Vegas is, obviously had legalized sports gambling for a long time, and I'm not aware of any major controversies in recent years regarding, corruption and things like that. So as long as, like you said, as long as there's a regulatory body and framework in place, I think a lot of those risks could be mitigated. Well, let's talk about, so what's in it for the state then? I mean, as far as, obviously there'd be revenue generated per bet, or how does that work in the states that have legalized it? How does the state make money off it? Because obviously, like, Illinois is strapped for cash, and they saw an opportunity and are, have widespread sports gambling. So what is in it for the state to legalize it?
Yeah, so I think there's, I mentioned earlier, various bills have been filed. The tax rate in Missouri, in the bills, you're looking at roughly 6.25% up to 9% on the tax revenue that would come back to the state. So
for each bet?
For the money that goes in. So
Gotcha.
Any winnings that is casino side, that is 6%, 6.25%. So as I mentioned, you mentioned Las Vegas has been in the market for 30 plus years. They are at their percentage is 6.75. You mentioned Pennsylvania earlier. They are at 36%. So it ranges, Illinois 15, Iowa 6.75. So it ranges across the board on this. Now, one thing you have to remember, some people say, well, look at Pennsylvania, that's, they're at 36%, the state's getting all kinds of money. You do have to factor in, you need a competitive market. So especially in Missouri with the surrounding states in play, it would be tough for, Missouri to pass something at, 36% when Iowa, Illinois are, at that lower number, because you do want investments and you want casinos to reinvest. So you do have to be careful there. Some of the revenue, the revenue estimates, I think you're looking anywhere between 8 up to 25 million that the state could see annually that would come in from a legalized sports betting market. Now there's other gaming expansion of gaming pieces out there that that could add to it, but sports betting alone, you're looking probably anywhere from 8 to 25, north of 25 million, depending on the tax structure. And then that does not include fees, application fees, renewal fees, et cetera. So you're looking, I would say, 20 million roughly is probably what you're looking at for the state to receive.
When I look at
revenue,
I feel like Missouri in particular, you mentioned 13 casinos. I mean, I don't know the stats, but I would imagine we have probably more casinos per capita than most, and we have very nice casinos. And I think the opportunity to put a sports book in, and rather than, I've gone out to March Madness in Vegas several times, and it's an amazing experience. And I think to be able to offer that experience here locally and attract people on a more regional basis, there'd be tourism dollars, there'd be, hotel taxes and things like that, if St. Louis and Kansas City in particular, if they were able to do that, I think you'd see a lot of tangential benefits for the state and the local governments.
Absolutely. I mean, you're already seeing Missouri citizens cross the border to go to casinos in Iowa or Illinois to reap the benefits of sports betting. So I do think that, a legalized market does open up opportunities for tourism, whether it's, people coming from other states or just coming or staying in Missouri to spend their money, at restaurants, hotels. You're also looking, at a legalized sports betting market that could bring, finance jobs, technology jobs, different jobs that Missouri may not have right now that could be opened up to a legalized sports betting market. I think there are, opportunities that people just, when you think of sports betting, you think, okay, yeah, I want to be able to bet on the Chiefs in the Super Bowl, but those other benefits that are out there are great opportunities for this state.
Well, absolutely. Well, we appreciate you being with us. This is fascinating stuff. This is Alex Eaton with Catalyst. As a lobbyist for the sports gambling industry. He's certainly very knowledgeable on the topic, and we appreciate you being with us, Alex.
Mark, I appreciate you having me on and giving me the time to talk sports betting. I know this is a popular issue on social media and sports radio, so appreciate the time.
All right, thank you, sir. That is Alex Eaton with Catalyst, joining us here on the Mark Milton Show to talk sports gambling. It's a topic that I find very interesting. I think it's inevitable that you're going to see it on a wide scale, and here in Missouri in particular, seems ripe for it. Seems like we've got the infrastructure for it. So we appreciate that discussion. You are listening to the Mark Milton Show with the Smash, broadcasting from the Miller Furniture Studios and presented by STLTaxLawyer.com. I want to tell you about one of our sponsors, TRC Outdoor. You've heard about them a number of times. They're fantastic. Outdoor landscaping company. Anything you need, landscape, hardscape, regular lawn maintenance, they'll take care of it for you. You can check them out at trcoutdoor.com. You can get a quote on whatever you need for your yard, whether it just be a quote on regular maintenance, whether you need a whole renovation in your backyard like we did last year. We had a new patio, retaining wall, stairwell put in. Phenomenal job. They do great work. Chris Rhodes has been on the show, owner of the company. And again, that's TRC Outdoor, trcoutdoor.com. Check them out. Give them a shot at your business. Request a quote, and I'm sure you will not be disappointed. You're listening to the Mark Milton Show on 590 The Fan, home of the Fighting Illini. You can find us anytime at 590thefan.com, themarkmiltonshow.com, and anywhere you subscribe to podcasts. Dave, one thing I find interesting about sports gambling is from a tax standpoint, because, this is presented by STLTaxLawyer.com. The choice of a lawyer is an important decision and should not be based on advertisements. But you've got, right now you still have an underground of illegal sports gambling.
Oh, big time.
And so what you're seeing now is more widespread legalized sports gambling. And not only does it present an opportunity for revenue for states and local governments, but I think from an income tax standpoint, it makes tracking this so much easier. for the government.
Oh, for sure. I mean, it's really no different than some of the states that have legalized recreational marijuana, for example, where you have a black market. People are going to do it anyway. You can just see all the offshore betting sites. So you legalize it, you tax it, and now the government gets its share of the revenue, and it's revenue that doesn't have to come straight out of your day-to-day income trying to put food on the table.
Right. And as a tax lawyer, somebody who works with people with tax problems, but also does tax planning and tax preparation. I've had many clients who, have gambling winnings. They get a W-2G. They hit a jackpot on a slot machine. Other third-party reporting I've seen, DraftKings, FanDuel, they issue 1099s to their customers. And so I think that the more you mainstream it, the more you legitimize it, it does present an opportunity for the IRS, Departments of Revenue, to also say, okay, Joe Blow, you're betting on DraftKings. You've got an account with BetMGM. They'll work with them to get the correct reporting and tracking your losses, because that's a big thing for people who gamble is, you might, hit a jackpot and get a W-2G, but you're also going to lose a lot of money along the way. And so being able to offset your winnings, which you're allowed to do with your losses, could be much easier if you've got a history. You can pull up your dashboard on FanDuel or MGM and see, okay, I had this many bets, losing bets. I had this much in winnings. They net it out, issue a 1099. I mean, that might take some finagling. You might have to report the gross and then deduct the losses. But I think it's an interesting tax topic, because how much revenue is being lost by illegal gambling that's not getting reported?
I can't imagine, but I would have to think it gets in the millions, especially when you look at the very high-end top tier.
No, absolutely. It's big money. It's not going away. The sports, the teams, their leagues, they're all seem to be buying into it, which I think maybe for many years was a hurdle, but now they're all, on board with it too.
And I don't know if you saw this past week, but Sinclair Broadcasting has announced that they are formally going to be rebranding Fox Sports Midwest to Bally Sports Midwest and introducing a bunch of interactive gambling elements into the telecast, at least where it's legal. Yeah,
no, it's coming. There's no doubt about it. Well, we appreciate you joining us here on the Mark Milton Show. We've had a great show today. Two really good guests. We had the Honorable Matthew T. Shelp, United States District Court Judge for the Eastern District of Missouri. We're very grateful to have him on to share his story. We also had Alex Eaton from Catalyst talking sports gambling. You can check out the podcast anytime at 590thefan.com, themarkmiltonshow.com, or Apple iTunes. Appreciate you being with us. This is the Mark Milton Show with the Smash, broadcasting from the Miller Furniture Studios and presented by STLTaxLawyer.com.